Okay, I had to come over to one of my other channels. The Michael Oziak channel is shut down. They locked it up last night sometime for strikes. I guess I got too many strikes. And I think what it was the Joe Rogan, the Elon Musk, and the medical industry were the jabs that they couldn't handle. Then they had to shut me down. So I don't know. So far, I'm still able to view my videos, but I'm not able to do anything on my channel. I got in, even after they told me that I was shut out, I managed to get in and put names and titles on the videos. I don't know if they're going to stick or not, but so far, they seem to be sticking. So I'm going to pick up with the Candace Owens series on this other channel. I'm going to see how it goes, and I don't know how long I'm locked out for. I think 3 weeks, a month, something like that. I'm going to be locked out of my Michael Oziak channel. So I'll start doing the Candace Owens series over on this other channel, on the Miguel Everyone channel. And we'll see how that goes. Yeah, they're all sticking. So, alright. So I'm going to start choosing some videos from the Candace Owens series on my other channel and running them through with background. Let's see what we got here. 13.
There is no planet B. There is no planet blah. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. This is not about some expensive, politically correct green act, bunny hugging, or blah, blah, blah. Build back better, blah, blah, blah. Green economy, blah, blah, blah. Net zero by 2050, blah, blah, blah. Net zero, blah, blah, blah. Climate neutral, blah, blah, blah.
I just want to know how she keeps getting applauded, so I'm going to try
I know,
blah,
right?
blah, blah. Nailed it. Woke is the equivalent to stupid. Is the equivalent to stupid. Is the direct equivalent to stupid, right? You know so much, you know nothing. We ranked 37th for math, United States. 37. Do you know how pathetic that is? Wasn't that way. It's happened over time because they replaced hard academics with wokeisms. Do you realize that these people are intentionally trying to dumb down your kids? And have you asked yourselves why that is? What is happening right now in society, this cancer that is happening, this is late stage cancer. This has been going on for a very long time, right? The totalitarianism, they knew exactly what they've known all along. If you look at America, the beginning history of slavery in this country, the slaves had to be stupid. The slaves were not learned how to read. If a government seeks to enslave individuals, they have to be stupid, okay? They have systematically designed in the school systems to make your kids stupid.
Smile Direct Club gets you a straighter, brighter.
Oh my God, that's like, wow, not very accomplishing. When did that concept come into your mind? Oh, I know. Cultural programming. To think that the concept of a stay-at-home mom is foreign and backwards and crazy and lacks accomplishment. This is the dirtiness of feminism today. Feminism has nothing to do with women's rights. It has nothing to do with protecting children. It is anything but. It is almost the exact opposite. Feminism today is anti-women. It is anti-mother, which means it is necessarily anti-child. And I've had enough of it. But you sending your kids to university so they can come back little Marxists and undermine you? For your child to be brainwashed. For your child to earn a meaningless degree. For your child to be sexualized in the classroom. Because ultimately what the government wants of your child is for them to be a slave. What do you want for your child?
Many people ask me, how do you use they, them pronouns for a singular person? Well, it's really easy. All you have to do is use it the same way that you would talk about a group of people. So, for example, I, Addison, use they, them pronouns. In that case, you talk about me like this. I know Addison. They are amazing. Now, a fun fact about they, them pronouns is that they've been used in a singular context for centuries. Even going back to Shakespearean times, there's actual documentation and literature using they and them in singular context. Our language is constantly changing and adapting. We're evolving to find new terms and language to self-identify. Stay with the times. Don't be an asshole.
I just sometimes think that we have to hit the reset button on humanity and start over. I also have this strange urge to meet everyone's parents. Like, I just want to know who raised him. Are they? Who raised them?
I took my trans daughter to see her pediatrician for the first time since she has come out as trans. When we brought up the subject of puberty blockers, which we were just asking for information at this point, the doctor said, "Oh, I do not have any trans patients and I don't know anything about that." But then proceeded to ask questions such as, "Have you researched people who regret transitioning?" No, I haven't. Because that's not really my concern right now. My concern is to make sure my child doesn't turn into a statistic and unalive herself.
Honestly, this one makes me super upset because in this scenario, the doctor should have probably called Child Protective Services. A child, like saying that there's a child who thinks it's trans is like saying there's a dog that thinks it's vegan. You know who's making the decision. Children don't think like this. There is a mother that needs to be removed from the care of that child.
I wear a mask to school. I wear a mask to school. Hi ho the Dario. I wear a mask to school. It helps to keep me safe. It helps to keep me safe. Hi ho the Dario. It helps to keep me safe. It keeps my friends safe. It keeps my friends safe. Hi ho the Dario, it keeps my friends safe. Oh, let me see a hooray! Put your hands up in the air!
Like the kids are not singing along because they're not enjoying the song and they're not enjoying wearing a mask, and you're creepy for trying to make this into a fun song. I mean, it hurts my heart to see children being abused. As funny as you want to find this like insane teacher, like we are now suddenly in an era in society where we're just watching child abuse take place.
Save pilots, turn bringers off.
Americans are aware of what is happening in Australia. And at the end of the monologue, I said, when do we invade Australia? Australia currently, make no mistake, is a tyrannical police state. Its citizens are quite literally being imprisoned against their will. So when do we deploy? Of course, I asked that in jest because we all know the real answer. The Guardian has run a headline saying that Candace Owens suggests that the U.S. should invade Australia. Completely stripped, did not even add the sentence, I say that of course in jest, removed from its entire context. For the last 20 years, the United States has spent trillions of dollars overseas in Afghanistan fighting a war to free an oppressed people. So I'm going to ask those same lecturing politicians and media members a question now. When do we deploy troops to Australia? It's very clear I'm joking because I actually say... Of course, I asked that in jest. The gender wage gap is one of the oldest myths in the feminist book. The idea that women are somehow getting paid less than men isn't true. They'll say a woman working in a fashion magazine makes $30,000 a year, whereas a man who is a neurosurgeon makes $150,000 a year. Of course, these are different professions. And when you actually examine the statistics closer, you'll realize that men and women, you guessed it, have different interests. And women tend not to go into engineering and mathematics and coding, and men do. So they tend to get out in society and make more money in that regard. Women, despite the fact that she believes we make less than men, we control over 80% of the spending purchases in this country. So that means men are making it and women are taking it. The first piece of advice would be to remind young women that thoughts become things. What you put in your ear informs your thoughts. It informs your ideas about what you think the world should look like and what freedom is, right? It is not freedom to wear less clothes. In fact, I in many ways would say that that's a form of slavery. If the only time you feel like you can be heard and the only time you feel like you can be seen is when you are stripping down, you are basically selling your dignity and your self-respect for a little bit of attention, and in my opinion, that's not a very good exchange.
I told my 9-year-old daughter that I was going to be speaking with you, and I said, what do you think about the climate change? And she said, The earth is on fire, and we're all going to die soon. And I asked her how that made her feel, and she said it made her feel angry. What should I tell my daughter, and how should I help her and the youngest generation bear the emotional toll of the actions that we're taking, fossil fuel companies are taking to destroy our planet?
It would be strange if we didn't feel that way, because then we wouldn't have any empathy.
The Democrat politicians always seem to have a conversation with their kids about every single time. Remember, how am I going to explain to my daughter that Hillary Clinton didn't win? Just tell her she didn't win, go make your bet. You know what I mean? Like,
if my 7-year-old came to me and said, I'm afraid that the world is on fire and we're all going to die, I'd be like, that's because you're a child and you're stupid. Because that's not true.
Chocolate, peanut butter, and oh dang, nougat's here? Now it's a party.
Fucker.
I mean, I think I've kind of made myself a staunch adversary of the Black Lives Matter movement. It is the antithesis of everything that I believe in as an American, first and foremost. And no, yeah, they're operating under the guise of something that's common sense, Black Lives Matter, and they're doing nothing to prove or to show that Black Lives matter to them because they don't care about Black lives. We know that all across America, in major cities, Black crime rate has gone up, Black homicide rate has gone up. Black people are dying because of Black Lives Matter activism. People burning down and looting Black neighborhoods, taking away Black jobs. So I hate everything to do with Black Lives Matter, and I have used my platform, my voice, to speak out against what is ultimately a big lie. Right? This is all built upon the idea that Black Americans are being gunned unarmed by a police officer. We're just peacefully, doing our business, and a police officer sees us, and they come up to us, and they want to shoot us, and they want to kill us. And that's a lie. There is no systemic racism. There is no law. There is nothing that says that I can't do something as a Black person that you can do. Out of respect to the military men that have PTSD, they actually served in the war, and you were not actually a slave. I find that to be a bit offensive. The last thing I want to say.
No.
Absolutely,
positively will not say that. And I will not allow that. I will not allow that to ride. I grew up in an oppressive and racist system.
Where were you
Slavery still exists under the 13th Amendment of the United States
with a law degree and no
Constitution.
education?
When you bash people like Naomi Osaka, who has mental issues, you bash people with mental illness. That's what you do. And you just you bash people who have mental illness. So of course you would dismiss
you know what? I
the
think
whole
it is a
theory
mental
of
illness
racial
if you
trauma.
think that you're suffering from PTSD from slavery. You've never been a slave. I'm not bashing you. I'm just calling it out. That PTSD do not correlate it to the military men who are suffering from something they actually experience.
And you have
White supremacy is real, just as racism is real, but neither of these ideologies are real in this room. They have become mechanisms for the left to continue to call these hearings and to distract from much bigger issues that are facing this country and which threaten minorities. Much bigger issues that they are responsible for. White nationalism sounds a lot better as a threat than father absence. When are we going to call a hearing on the 74% of single motherhood rate in Black America today? My guess is probably never. Since Democrats are the author of that epidemic, which leaves us, Black Americans, 20 times more likely to end up in prison, 9 times more likely to drop out of high school, and 5 times more likely to lead a life in poverty and to commit crime. White nationalism also sounds a lot better than illiteracy rates. I'm assuming we're never going to call a hearing on that, which is a real epidemic that is facing Black Americans and minority Americans today. An epidemic which, by the way, has a lot closer of a tie to our nation's history of white supremacy.
I find Governor Abbott's comments disgusting, and I think there's twofold. One, I don't know if he is familiar with a menstruating person's body. In fact, I do know that he's not familiar with a woman, with a female or menstruating person's body.
I think we are all Anderson Cooper, who's kind of just like, menstruating persons, yuck. A general rule that I like to follow in debate is that if I'm too scared to even acknowledge the existence of the group of individuals I'm purporting to be defending, I probably have no business in the debate. Say it with me. Women. Women. It really is that easy. I cannot stress to you how unbelievably childish it is that you're too scared to acknowledge your own gender. You should be in attendance nowhere that requires adult conversation. And I shudder to think that you are a sitting member of Congress. It truly is a sign of the times.
Brown people need to be scared, which seems to be the narrative that we hear. every 4 years, right ahead of a presidential election. Here are some things we never hear. 75% of the black boys in California don't meet state reading standards. In inner cities like Baltimore, within 5 high schools and 1 middle school, not a single student was found to be proficient in math or reading in 2016. The single motherhood rate in the black community, which is at 23% in the 1960s when my grandfather was coming up, is at a staggering 74% today. I am guessing there will be no committee hearings about that. There are more black babies aborted than born alive in cities like New York, and you have Democrat Governor Andrew Cuomo lighting up buildings to celebrate late-term abortions. I could go on and on. My point is that white nationalism did not do any of those things that I just brought up. Democrat policies did. White supremacy, racism, white nationalism, words that once held real meaning, have now become nothing more than election strategies. Every 4 years, the black community is offered handouts in fear. Reparations and white nationalism. This is the Democrat preview. Of course, society is not perfectible. We've heard testimony of that today. There are pockets of evil that exist, and those things are horrible, and they should be condemned. But I believe the legacy and the ancestry of black Americans is being insulted every single day. I will not pretend to be a victim in this country, and I know that that makes many people on the left uncomfortable. I want to talk about real issues in black America. I want to talk about real issues in this country and real concerns. The biggest scandal, this is my last sentence, in American politics is that Democrats have been conning minorities into belief that we are perpetual victims, all but ensuring our failure. Racial division and class warfare are central to the Democrat Party platform. They need blacks to hate whites, the rich to hate the poor, and soon enough it'll be the tall hating the short.
Interesting. Wow, what a good choice that would be. Fantastic.
Trump Owens, 24.
Yeah, I think that's a great. You would be fantastic, and I really appreciate the job you do, and everybody does. The answer is I'm absolutely enthused. I look forward to doing an announcement at the right time. As you know, it's very early, but I think people are going to be very, very happy when I make a certain announcement. And for campaign finance reasons, you really can't do it too early because it becomes a whole different thing. Otherwise, I'd give you an answer that I think you'd be very happy with. But so we are looking at that very, very seriously, and all I say is stay tuned.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll take you at your word, and that means that in 2024, Trump and Owens are going to be on the ticket. The youth are hanging out on TikTok. What are they seeing?
All you Karens out there who have your panties in a bunch about the fact that doctors are starting to use the term pregnant person instead of pregnant women, I want you to listen up. Women are people. Non-binary people and trans men are also people.
If your doctor looks like that, and if your doctor tells you that, you need a new doctor, right? Your doctor did not pass basic biology. So this moment brought to you by the Tokyo Olympics of a reporter trying to get these women to comment on Laurel Hubbard, the first trans woman that's competing in the Olympics, is quite rich. Look how these women respond to it at the Olympics.
With Laurel Hubbard competing as the first openly transgender in a individual event, and I was wondering, what you felt about that and what you felt that it took place in your sport.
No, thank you.
I just love it. I love it. It's just bizarre land. Like, you watch one like this and it's like, I'm so happy that these women just go, no thank you, because it's so clear that they're upset about this. They have every right to be upset about this, and yet the media is playing some weird, bizarre game like, this is progress. It's so much progress that now you guys have to compete with grown men. It is interesting that the left says that half of the nation, more than half of the nation rather, are terrible, horrible bigots, white supremacists, racists, misogynists, every ish that you can pop on a word. That's exactly what we are, according to the left. And yet when you talk about saying, what if we just split up? What if we just split up? They freak out.
they lose their minds, right? It seems odd. It seems almost counter to their narrative. We're such horrible, backwards people. Why do they want to stick together with us? Well, because they have to have someone to steal money from, first and foremost. They're telling all of the kids that they don't have to go to work, that the government will take care of everything. Well, then there's some people that are hardworking Americans that believe in conservative principles that they're going to have to steal from. Right now in America, we don't even agree that America is a fundamentally good country. If there is not something that is the glue that keeps everybody together, you don't really have a nation. Right now, we are not the United States of America. We are the divided states of America.
Ritz welcomes you to surprise your coworker.
Fucking commercials.
Go on to talk about this. This is amazing. We should just watch it. This is on TikTok, and it is just going to show you where we are at on the topic of gender.
There are trans men who lactate. There are those who go by he, him, different pronouns. It is not hurting cis women to say chest feeding, but it does hurt those who go by other pronouns to continue to say breastfeeding, especially if they have body dysmorphia.
My child is not allowed to have TikTok. What better way to quickly corrode culture than via a social media app?
Ukraine Sovereignty Act. Its purpose is to guarantee, quote, Ukraine's sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity. These are the things that all countries need. We'd love to have them here. But no, we're going to have to wait. Ukraine is ahead of us in the queue for secure borders, and honestly, you can see why. As they used to say when we were kids growing up in the United States, what's good for the lightly populated Russian colony of Ukraine is good for us. As our oldest and most cherished ally, yoked tightly to the American people by the ancient bonds of friendship, shared culture, and barisma, Ukraine comes first. It has to come first. When caravans of undocumented Russians appear on the Ukrainian border, the United States doesn't sit idly by. The United States swoops in with deadly weapons to push these people back. We'll send missiles to Ukraine if we have to. In fact, we already have billions of dollars worth. But wait a second, you ask. Isn't undocumented immigration a good thing? Doesn't immigration increase diversity, the blessed source of all beauty, power, and strength? Well, sure. Most of the time it does, but not in Ukraine. Ukraine exists for the exclusive presence of Ukrainians. People who look or speak differently, people from other places with, say, different religions, are not allowed in Ukraine. Period. That's Nancy Pelosi's position. Ukraine is the one place Nancy Pelosi very much wants to keep racially pure. She's willing to use lethal force to do that. Virtually everyone in Congress agrees with Pelosi, so does the White House. Here's Joe Biden's Deputy National Security Advisor explaining that when undocumented foreign nationals arrive in Ukraine, they'll be killed.
Why should Americans care about what's happening in Ukraine?
Because it goes to a very fundamental principle of all nations, which is that our borders should be inviolate, that our sovereignty should be respected.
Our borders should be inviolate. Our sovereignty should be respected, meaning Ukraine's. That man was Jonathan Feiner. He's Biden's Deputy National Security Advisor. It's interesting to note that Jonathan Feiner has no relevant experience for the job he currently holds. At one point, he was a Washington Post reporter. That's reassuring. Most recently, he was cashing in at a private equity firm paying approximately half the federal tax rate you are. Good for him. But one thing Jonathan Feiner has learned along the way is that Ukrainian borders matter. If you cross without permission, you will be droned into the next life. Kamala Harris strongly agrees with that. Here's Harris threatening would-be Russian immigrants.
The bottom line is that we have been clear and consistent for quite some time that we respect the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine, and we expect that Russia would do the same, and any aggressive action taken by Vladimir Putin will be met with severe consequences.
Severe consequences. The understatement is chilling. That woman is bloodthirsty. That's what our borders are. Try to cross the border and we'll take out your entire caravan. Claim asylum? What's asylum? Don't think so. One toe over the line and you're dead. Those are strong words, but Kamala Harris appears to mean them. She probably does mean them. But again, you should know that Kamala Harris is not talking about our border here in the U.S. She's talking about the Ukrainian border. Now, what's the difference between the two? Well, the Ukrainian border, by contrast, is a place the Pentagon is willing to defend. Watch.
8,500 U.S. military personnel on heightened alert. Is this the ceiling of military personnel that the administration will be committing to this conflict, do you see?
Well, it's what we're talking about today is about 8,500 on heightened alert. But as I said yesterday, we're certainly not going to rule out other options. Our job is to provide options to the president, to the commander-in-chief, and we're going to continue to do that. And so I certainly would not rule out the possibility that we could be putting additional forces on heightened alert in the coming days and weeks, and maybe even moving troops around Europe that are already there to bolster and to reassure some of our allies on the ground on the continent.
Wait, we're only sending 8,500 American troops to protect the Ukrainian border? Asked the teleprompter reader. Well, says John Kirby, actually, we could send a lot more. They're all poised to secure the sacred Ukrainian border. So you may be wondering, how does that commitment compare to what the Pentagon is willing to deploy to our southern border? Well, let's see a little back of the envelope math here. It's exactly 8,500 more, because there are no troops, no American troops heading to our southern border. That may seem distressing to you, but in a way it makes sense. Ukraine needs the troops. Ukraine hasn't been invaded yet. We have been invaded, and we lost. We've been defeated. And like all vanquished nations, we're being treated with humiliating contempt by world leaders, in this case by our own leaders. Customs and Border Protection just released the latest statistics on the invasion ongoing into this country. In the month of December, last month, the feds encountered close to 180,000 illegal immigrants, foreign nationals, whose identities we can't know,
to Eagle Pass, Texas, on Wednesday night. Border Patrol photos show the size of that group, with the sector chief himself saying this was no coincidence. It was orchestrated by criminal elements for money. The night before, the exact same thing happened. Photos from Border Patrol show another group of 400 after they crossed illegally into Eagle Pass Tuesday night. Here in the Rio Grande Valley, we embedded with Texas DPS as they tracked down runners in the brush looking to evade near La Joya, Texas. 2 men in this group were from China.
That was Bill Melugin on the border. He's still there. We'll go back to him in just a moment. But this is an ongoing assault on our national sovereignty, on our territorial integrity. The things we've been hearing for the last month are so vitally important in Ukraine. How's this happen? Who's the Vladimir Putin in this morality tale? Well, that would be Joe Biden. This has all been allowed, enabled, encouraged by Joe Biden with the help of big corporations and left-wing nonprofits. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, who really should be charged with a crime but hasn't been yet, recently bragged to CBS News that, we're quoting, "We have fundamentally changed immigration enforcement in the interior." And we're continuing the quote, "For the first time ever, our policy explicitly states that a non-citizen's unlawful presence in the United States will not by itself be a basis for the initiation of an enforcement action." So what does that mean exactly? So this is the guy charged with enforcing immigration laws that he did not create. He's in the executive branch. They don't create laws. But here's the guy in charge of enforcing them, bragging that he's decided to ignore federal law. These are the laws that our Congress was elected to pass. Oh, thwarting democracy? Anyone? Pay no attention. Vladimir Putin's the one who threatens democracy. Everything's fine in this country. We're doing what you elected us to do. They're not even trying. Facebook's not a threat to democracy. How could it be? Mark Zuckerberg funds the Democratic Party. He's a good guy. But Facebook is encouraging this invasion too. Facebook helps its users share information on how to cross the border illegally and how to break our laws. Do they encourage users to cook meth? Here's how you make fentanyl. Here's how child trafficking can make you millions. Those are crimes too. We can't say that they're doing that. They're encouraging the breaking of federal immigration law. We're not guessing about this. Facebook admitted it recently to the Attorney General of the state of Arizona. We're quoting, "We do allow people to share information about how to enter a country illegally or request information about how to be smuggled." About how to be smuggled? Facebook is helping people who, quote, want to be smuggled? In addition to being totally evil, these people have no self-awareness. Imagine saying something like that. Uber does it too. Uber drivers are picking up illegal migrants from the border. We know because Fox News spoke to one driver in Arizona who said, quote, "I just will get a notification of a pickup, head down to the location, and there will be a group of 20-plus immigrants standing on the corner waiting for Ubers." So again, if Facebook and Uber were abetting child trafficking, which on some level they are, because child trafficking is an integral part of illegal immigration, so is drug trafficking, maybe someone would wake up and do something about it. You're seeing people rotting in solitary because they trespassed in the Capitol, but Uber and Facebook are helping people violate federal law and we don't care? No one in Congress is investigating any of this. Sounds like sedition to us, but they're busy. They're sending hundreds of millions of dollars of lethal weapons to Ukraine to help with their border. Pentagon's not sending troops to our border, they're sending them to Ukraine's border. So that's the Biden administration's approach. That approach is virtually uncontested in Washington. Here's Mitch McConnell, who poses by day as leader of the opposition in the Senate.
What I've been hearing since then is encouraging, that they're prepared to take steps before an incursion, not afterwards. I've not been near the news this morning, so I'm not sure what additionally may have occurred, but it appears to me the administration is moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it appears that way. If the direction you want to move is to completely change the population of the country for political reasons, let 2 million people in 1 year, people whose identities you can't confirm, whose intentions you don't know, who are bringing with them records amounts of narcotics that have killed over 100,000 Americans. If that's the goal, then Mitch McConnell, you're onto something. You're moving in the right direction. But if the goal is to have a first world country where laws mean something, probably not the right direction. So why are you telling us otherwise, Mitch McConnell? Who are you working for exactly? Whose side are you on? I think we know. Who's paying for all this stuff? Well, you are. American citizens are paying for it. The United Nations, which takes billions in U.S. tax dollars, is paying for it too. They're giving out cash to illegal migrants heading to our border. An investigation by the Center for Immigration Studies found the UN has been handing out cash debit cards to U.S.-bound illegal aliens and giving them advice on how to claim asylum in our country, on how to game our system, on how to make a mockery of our laws. They don't respect us. We don't respect ourselves enough to stop this. Once these migrants get here, our authorities do everything possible to make sure they stay. The Biden administration attempted on day one to pause all deportations. That moratorium, thank God, was blocked by a federal judge, but it hardly matters. The administration is continuing to abet criminal behavior. They're allowing illegals to use their arrest warrants as ID in airports. You try that. Sorry, I don't have my ID, but I do have my arrest warrant. Can I get housing subsidies, food stamps, free health care, and a flight? Sure you can. You're from another country. Americans don't get that. Here's another report from Bill Malucci.
TSA confirms to Fox News that the agency is allowing illegal immigrants to use arrest warrants as ID at security checkpoints in airports, telling us in part, quote, "For non-citizens and non-U.S. nationals who do not otherwise have acceptable forms of ID for presentation at security checkpoints, TSA may also accept certain DHS-issued forms, including ICE Form I-200, warrant for arrest of an alien."
You just can't repeat this enough, and again, we're doing this not because we think it's going to change anything. It won't. This is just a TV show, but we want a record of what's happening right now. History is rewritten, unfortunately, by the victors, and the details disappear. But we think the details are important. We think we all should be allowed to know why this is happening and how it's happening. So just to restate, we're allowing foreigners who came here illegally in violation of our laws, which are unenforced by our current government, which is undermining democracy by its refusal to enforce those laws. Those people get to use their arrest warrants to get on airplanes. Well, you have to show ID. Meanwhile, again, you can't say this enough, we'll stop after this. Congress is doing everything it can, pulling out all the stops to send more money to Eastern Europe to protect the borders of Ukraine. It's like it's not even real, but it is real.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page. Liberal Justice Stephen Breyer will be retiring this summer at the end of the High Court's current term. The huge news leaking out before Breyer could officially announce it himself. Multiple sources tell Shannon Bream that the justice was surprised with how this played out. But President Biden and his White House claim they don't know anything about it.
There has been no announcement from Justice Breyer. Let him make whatever statement he's going to make, and I'll be happy to talk about it later.
The president has stated and reiterated his commitment to nominating a black woman to the Supreme Court, and certainly stands by that. For today, again, I'm just not going to be able to say anything about any specifics until, of course, Justice Breyer makes any announcement, should he decide to make an announcement.
Democrats are reportedly looking at ramming through Biden's eventual nominee and follow a similar timeline that Republicans used for Amy Coney Barrett. The White House confirming Biden's looking at a woman of color to fill the role, while getting pressed on who he may pick.
Is there any scenario in which the president would select his Vice President Kamala Harris for the Supreme Court?
Again, I'm not going to speak to any considerations, preparations, lists.
Just wondering, hypothetically, theoretically, would someone who was an attorney general of a large state and who served with many key Senate votes be an attractive candidate to the president for an open Supreme Court seat?
I see what you did there, Peter. But the president has every intention, as he said before, of running for re-election, and for running for re-election with Vice President Harris on the ticket as his partner.
So what would motivate a leak right before Breyer announces, possibly from the White House?
Well, this is super high stakes, and one of my favorite things to do is cover a Supreme Court nomination, so I was quite excited today when I heard about this. Obviously, Breyer has had a long career in the judiciary, not only in the Supreme Court, but before. And so this decision, it's such high stakes for any sort of president. I think now there is reporting that says his decision to announce was imminent and that the White House maybe jumped the gun by a hair, or somebody at the White House did, or maybe not the White House. I understand why, because they have a lot of work to do. You got to get everybody in line. Now, what did we report this morning on America's Newsroom? That Biden is losing in the polls, even with Democrats. So what is one thing that can focus the mind, and that is a Supreme Court nomination. Now, because the filibuster rules had changed, and you can get to a Supreme Court vote with 51 votes now, it's not as big a deal, but they only have 51 votes, right? 50 plus Kamala Harris. Right. The White House has also said it's going to be a judge. The president has said on the campaign trail it's going to be a black woman. So you can look at how many judges there are, and I would imagine you probably could figure out their names pretty quickly. That list will narrow down. Senator Schumer might not be the majority leader after the November midterms. So they had to do this right away. If they waited until the end of the term, which was in end of June, that would only give them 4 months. And I think a lot of people, including somebody like Kirsten Sinema or Joe Manchin, could have said, you know what, we ought to wait. Yeah. We ought to wait and see. This way they can try to get it done right away.
And now, I guess the nominee has to go through Manchin and Sinema a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they hold a lot of cards.
I'm with Dana. This is fantastic. Immediately you think, okay, this is the best news Joe's ever heard because he needs a historical POC, right? Who's just hanging around driving him nuts right now? It's like he can unload the lemon and the lemon gets a promotion. I mean, that's amazing. But I don't know if it's going to do it because it's such an obvious ploy. I think that Merrick Garland should come out and identify as a non-binary person of color and become a historical first. But I'll tell you this, whoever gets nominated, I'm going to say that that person, be they male or female or non-binary, did something really bad to me. A long time ago. I'm not going to say what it is that they did to me.
Can you remember what they did?
It might have been, I don't know yet. It might have been college. It might have been like high school. Might have been in the gym. Who knows? But I'm going to tell you, whatever I say is going to be 100% true. It's disgusting, and I would prefer if you guys just respected my privacy when this happens. But the thing is, the question is, will the Republicans be as disgusting and partisan and vindictive as the Dems were on basically every single nominee? And I don't believe two wrongs make a right, but boy, it's going to feel good. I would rather have two wrongs. Sometimes two wrongs are better than a right. And in this case, I think that I want an explosive hearing with corrupt lawyers, freaky shit, the return of Jessica or Julie Swetnick. Got to get Avenatti on like a Zoom call from jail. I'm gonna go and get my handmaid's costume out of storage, and I'm gonna wear it to the Supreme Court steps.
You know what, Greg? As much as we all want to see that, I don't think that's going to happen, Geraldo. Do you see this happening the way it would be if that had happened?
And I also call on Republicans right now to be gracious to the nominee. It's going to go through no matter what you do.
Gracious, yes.
Be gracious. Don't be like the Democrats. Don't torture the nominee. I thought that Kamala Harris would be a great idea. It was the first name that jumped into my mind. She could be a terrific Supreme Court justice, an appointment for life. She's only in her 50s. She'd be there for 30 years.
Think she'd be a good justice?
I think she'd be a terrific
You
thought
she has the mental. She has the mental.
That was also true, but you know, it's a role fit for her. But a lifelong appointment is a role for her. It's not going to happen. They've already put out the D.C. Circuit Judge Brown Jackson, the South Carolina District Judge Michelle Childs, Leondra Cougar, all black women. It's interesting that it's definitely affirmative action, right? As they are considering the seminal affirmative action case against Harvard and University of North Carolina. So it is ironic.
Yeah.
It is ironic. But I'm all for targeted, there is no black woman on the court. Why not do it and that Republicans behave?
What about a Puerto Rican?
They have one.
You can't have more. Why not more, Geraldo?
Yes.
More is more.
She is my favorite justice.
She is? What? So she's the one who gave me disinformation on 100,000 kids dying from COVID. Are you kidding?
But she makes great rice and beans.
Right. Okay, that's
even
the
true?
new standard. Okay.
You made that up. Oh, man, thank God that wasn't
So
me.
here's the thing. This is coming at such an opportune time for Joe Biden. The distraction is perfect for him. His numbers are in the tank.
Yep.
You know, now everybody knows Supreme Court nominee hearing, we can get crazy. We can go lunatic.
Live TV.
And you know what? And it is live TV. But I have to tell you, Geraldo, I'm tired of the Republicans, playing by the Marcus of Queenberry rules. I'm tired of that. I'm not saying you have to be an animal about it, but darn, let's just let people know we got a slap in there too when we can do it. And not everybody is perfectly clean. And you know what?
See a Republican slap a black woman around? That's going to be great.
Come on. You know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about figuratively. What they did to Kavanaugh and what they did to Amy Coney Barrett, it was outrageous. And in the end, what Americans want is a judge who is justice, who is competent, who is smart, and who is non-political. We don't want politics in the United States Supreme Court. And you know what? If you want to pick a woman of color, that's fine. But just make sure she's competent. And there are
this district court circuit judge.
You had your say. This is my turn.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So right now, you've got competent judges. You've got Judge Jackson. You've got Justice Kruger. You've got several of them who've already got Senate confirmation. So it won't be that bad. And you're right, 50 plus 1, that's all they need.
And Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin have voted for every judicial nominee that Biden has put forward already.
Oh, all right.
So far.
And the judge says the Republicans can play dirty. So there you go. There you go. You've been given permission by Judge Janine
They need to play like they have a back
phone and whatever goes with that.
All right. I'm having an article published in the book. It'll be written by Ronan Farrow.
Where did she touch you?
I can't. I'm going to show you on the doll.
I can't. We're gonna do that in the break.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else. It was a big day for Joe Biden. Don't take my word for it. Just listen to the always honest and ever forthcoming White House propagandist Jen Psaki circling back.
So the president has nothing on his schedule today aside from the PDB. Can you shed any light on how he's spending his day?
Well, let's see. This morning, I think he had some policy meetings, also a PDB meeting. He, later this afternoon, I think is doing some remarks review. There are some days that we spend some time doing internal meetings and discussions with policy experts, with policy leaders, and that's what's happening today. He would say he doesn't have nearly enough time of free time on his schedule because it is packed no matter whether people see him or not.
That's right, 0 official events on the schedule. The average is less than 1 a day. Anyway, 0 today. But that doesn't mean Joe is doing nothing. Take a look at your screen. Here he is out and about in beautiful Washington, D.C. at a woman's clothing boutique doing a little shopping. Joe even picked out a brand new mug.